Hey everybody, it's Russell. Welcome back to the AMC Stock Story. I don't know how people feel about this. I think it's interesting. I think it puts perspective on our AMC investment. But this is an episode of the AMC Stock Story. Am I addicted to AMC? And I recorded this episode on August 6, 2021. And the price of AMC at the time was $32.70. And it was kind of a tough time when it was at $32.70 because not too long before that, a couple months before that, it was around $60. So it had lost half from that peak at this point. And at the time, I kept buying it as it dipped lower. And my wife at this point was like, hey, stop buying this crap. Stop buying this crap. And I'd be like, yeah. Okay, no, I won't. And then I would still pick up a few shares here and there when we had the money. And I recorded this episode, Am I Addicted to AMC? To try and answer, is this behavior addictive behavior when your spouse tells you not to do something and you say you won't and then you go out and do it? Or are you just like, hey, I know what I'm doing, I can handle this, I can get this done? So at the time, I sort of answered this question, well, yes and no. Am I addicted to AMC? I am showing some behavior that if it was alcohol, you'd say maybe you are an alcoholic, as opposed to someone who just likes to drink a lot. That was one of the questions I asked in the show. I can now, having the perspective almost, a year and a half, 2 years from being into this play, I would say, yeah, I'm an AMC addict. I've controlled it now. I've sort of bought what I wanted to buy. And I still think I'm addicted to investing in the sense that when I see something that I think is going to be a good investment, I want to go out and get it. The only issue is, hey, because we have so much money tied up in AMC, we just don't have the money to be making all these investments anymore. And I try to respect my wife's wishes now by not making a bunch of crazy investments. I've made a few. I got back into digital assets when Bitcoin went up to 30. I didn't want to miss the boat on that just in case there is a bull run in crypto. I was in and then I was out after FTX. But then I watched the digital asset market and saw that, hey, it didn't completely crash. It didn't completely crater and all the exchanges didn't go down like dominoes. So I wanted to get back in. But other than, getting back in a few digital assets with Dojo and Mars and Tonic, I've held back from investing, and I see some of the other investments that I like that are down now, and I want to go in and grab some. But the biggest investment I can make right now is in my marriage and respecting what my wife has asked me to do. So that's the way I look at it. The bigger investment is our marriage, and I don't want to keep having these conversations where she says, hey, I told you to stop doing this, and you keep doing it. It's both of our money, and you're making this decision on your own without any input from me. So, in that regard, I admit, I'm addicted to investing. It's just like gambling or any other addiction. You get a thrill out of doing it, and it's hard to turn your brain off when you're doing that. But I'm doing the best I can. I hope some of these investments pay off, and it won't seem so bad. Maybe a good addiction to have if they pay off. But that's what this episode is about. And I hope it gives you perspective, like I said, on the investment. It is interesting when I talk about the price and, dipping down into the 30s. I talk about that. I talk about the delay that we thought this was going to squeeze in June and July of 2021. And then because of this delay, even just till August, right, even these couple months allowed me to buy more AMC. And I talk about how life can work out sometime where you think something is a bad thing, but in the end it turns out to be a good thing. And that was allowing me to buy more AMC, that if AMC squeezes now or goes up now, I have so many more shares than I had back then that, it'll benefit me greatly. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone up. It didn't have the squeeze. It didn't have the MOAS. Who knows if it will happen? I hope it does. I really do. But I do have a lot more shares than I ever had. It's just going to be interesting to see where it ultimately goes. So that was a good story. I talk about a story of when I worked at Disney in a situation like that. So that's an interesting story if you want to hear that. So stick around. It gives you perspective on the investment. I think it's a really great story about life and working at Disney. It confronting this issue of do you have an addiction to AMC? Do you have an addiction to investing? And maybe you can relate, maybe it isn't an issue, but hopefully you'll get something out of this episode. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm getting ready to hear the hearing. The hearing's going to start in a few minutes. Hopefully it's good news for AMC. We've been on this journey so long. I hope the chancellor, as they say, is the grown-up in the room, that they can see what's going on with this AMC play, and if they see corruption, if they can investigate it, if they can try to put a stop to it, that Congress didn't do, that the executive branch with the SEC, they didn't do anything about it. And maybe this third branch of our government, the judiciary, maybe someone from that branch can step in and say, what is going on with this AMC play? What is going on with these market makers? What is going on with these short hedge funds? What is going on with the SEC? What is this? How does this happen? And I hope some good comes of it. And I hope it restores some faith in government, because I've lost a lot of it. Unfortunately, I love this country. I used to love government. I used to love politics. And a lot of that has soured. That it just seems like a criminal operation right now, where the 1% just does whatever they want, takes what they want, makes all the mistakes that they want, and then they just bail themselves out, and they install the politicians that they want, that they can control. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but just because something is a conspiracy theory doesn't automatically mean it's false or it isn't true. The money is powerful, and the people with the money, they tend to control things. But not always. Sometimes the masses can join together and force that change. Hopefully that's what the AMC movement can be about. Hopefully that judge will help us and be a reasonable person and look at this situation and say, this is wrong, this is corrupt, and we're going to make some changes here. Personally, who am I? I'm an idiot. I'm a smooth-brained ape. I don't know much. I hope good things work out, and we'll see. But good luck to you, apes, and let's see what happens. And here, get ready for a walk down memory lane if you care to take it. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the AMC Stock Story podcast. I'm your host, Russell Corey, and this is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. This is solely for entertainment purposes as I talk about my experiences of investing in AMC stock and becoming an AMC ape. Episode 15, Am I Addicted to AMC? So am I an addict? Am I an AMC addict? And that's kind of a tough one to answer, to be honest with you. Because in some ways I think I am, and in some ways I don't think I am. And it kinds to not to it's a much more serious subject, but if you'll bear with me. But you think if someone has a problem with alcohol, what's the difference between an alcoholic and someone that likes to drink a lot? And where do I fall in that category with AMC stock? So I will freely admit, as far as the AMC stock situation goes, I'm definitely someone that likes to drink a lot. That I push the limits. And I think some of the behavior I've had, gets into that. Are you an alcoholic or not? And I'll give you an example. So, when I started this, I was all in. Once I got into it, I was in. I saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make life-changing money. I felt comfortable enough with the situation that I was willing to make a pretty substantial investment. And I did that. And I don't think my wife was quite convinced as I was. So I kept pushing her in the beginning. I would open up a brokerage account. And I would, a lot of these ones you'd get, once you do a deposit, they would give you instant credit up to a certain point. You'd have to make your deposit, but they would match that. So you could start investing right away. And I had to convince her in the beginning that, hey, I opened up one of these accounts, but I'm maxed out on my instant credit. I think this is going to go tomorrow. You need to open up one of these accounts. And she was not happy. Not happy at all. But she ended up reluctantly doing it. And that was the day before AMC went to 72. So she essentially doubled her money in a day. And I didn't do I told you so. I just, I was happy that it happened. But then again, I'm glad I didn't do a big victory dance, because it went down. And to her credit, she's been okay on me with that. Hasn't been beating me up or anything. Obviously no one's happy that it's down, but it's been okay. Now here's the thing. I have also been adding shares when I can. We get a paycheck, we get some extra money coming in. Hey, can we, squeeze a few more shares in, especially when the price goes low. When it dips down into the 30s, buy the dip, right? And I make this, I haven't, I don't know if you call it prospectus or not, but I put together a package of what we've invested at different levels that, what the stock is, valued, at this amount, if it goes to $500, if it goes to $1,000, this is what our shares, would bring. And, I keep updating that, and I would show it to her. And I think, part of her is happy when the stock is up and we've added more shares, but then there's also a part of her that's like, hey, enough is enough. No more buying, no more shares, no more shares. And then I go, yeah. Okay, yeah. And then, I would still go buy shares. So that's kind of the behaviors. That's like, no more drinking. Okay, no, I won't drink. And, you go hide a bottle somewhere so you can have a drink. So that's kind of the behavior of an addict. You're in a relationship, you have a spouse, and, she says, don't buy anymore. And you go, okay, yeah. And you go and buy some. Now, when I buy some, I don't buy 1,000 shares. You're talking about 1 or 2 shares here and there, or if you have like a extra cash in one of your accounts and it's not enough to buy a share, can you deposit enough to be able to buy a share now? And I've done stuff like that. But I think the other thing was we got to a certain point with our Roth was done. I went all in on my Roth. I converted everything, all the mutual funds, all the stocks that were in there, into AMC. Now that Roth was only 15% of my retirement. The other 85% of my retirement has not been touched. So, and I wouldn't be able to touch this money anyway in the Roth for 7 years. So if things went south and we had to, we lost half of it in this gambit for whatever reason, we'd have 7 years to make that money up that we lost, which we probably could if you make some fairly reasonable, more safe investments. So that part didn't bother me. The thing for us was, if AMC hit, we wouldn't be able to touch that money for 7 years without paying taxes or penalties. And so at the time when we got into this, we had to open up individual investor accounts. And that's when the instant credit was a big deal, because we could, start the transfer, but normally it would take, 5 business days. Well, we could get that instant credit and start, we could have a stake. And here's the funny thing. I was going to get to this later in the podcast, but I'll talk about it now. I have a saying that life doesn't turn out for the best. Or life doesn't happen for the best. Life happens, and it's up to you to make the best out of it. So I want to talk about these hedge funds, that have been battling us. They say they're manipulating the stock, they're driving it down. How dare they? Why isn't the SEC doing something? This is awful. Is it? Is it really? Is it really that bad? Because I want to tell you a story. When I got my job at Disney, one of the happiest moments of my life when I got to work at Disney. The previous 10 years, I had worked for a small company that sold videotape. And it was a small company, and it took its lead from the owner, who was he was an alcoholic Marine, right? It's harsh to say an alcoholic. Let me put it this way, he drank a lot. He liked to drink a lot. I won't say he's an alcoholic, but he drank a lot. Very politically incorrect, but a nice man, and he did some nice things for me. So, but he was who he was, and the company had kind of a harsh edge to it. And had a general manager who was really terrible, who didn't care about people, and quite frankly was an awful person to work for and with. And I've always regretted I worked there for 10 years. And it was awful, and I hated it. And every day I kept thinking, I'm going to sell a script, and I'm going to show these guys. And for 10 years I failed, and ultimately I finally gave up and said, enough. I threw in the towel, and they were tired. They were ready to fire me. I wanted to quit, and we had a mutual parting of the ways. Anyway, so from going to that environment, and this was an industrial park in North Hollywood, California. It was bad. It felt like a prison because it was all concrete, right? No, barely any vegetation. There were a few bushes by where the trash can dumpster was. And next door was a training station for the fire department. So like there was this big monolithic tower that they would train in for their firefighting skills. But it looked kind of like a prison guard tower, right? This thing that just went straight up right along the wall there. So for all those years, I kind of felt trapped in prison. Like all guys, and it was a very harsh environment. And I was young. I was in my 20s. And I just wasn't confident. I was in a different state. I didn't have any family around and, a few friends. But it was hard to leave there. I got sort of institutionalized to being there. And I was afraid to leave. And I wasn't sure what I could do, what skills I had, and what kind of job I could get. And I liked it because it was kind of mindless. And I could write at night and on the weekends. But anyway, I'm just sort of setting this up. So when I got to Disney, right? So I left there. And I was like, well, I don't want to get trapped in another company that I don't like. So I'm going to temp for a while. Then a lot of my friends had temped, and they ended up with jobs with the studios, Warner Brothers, Disney, and what have you. So I signed up with a temp agency, and the first real job they sent me to was working for Disney. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. I've loved Disney since I was a child, like most people. And I'm actually be going to work at Disney. It was going to be a 3-week contract, and I was so excited. So I went in, and it worked really hard, and I ended up getting the job permanently, and it was awesome. But I always remember when I went in. So I was working at my desk, and then the person who did the same job as I did, we were partners, and we would alternate days, responsibility, and what have you. Anyway, but we worked together. She trained me, and we worked together. And she was really great coworker, And to be quite honest, she was a very attractive blonde, right? So for me to go from, being in this prison environment with all guys that's not very nice to all of a sudden you're at Disney. You have the Disney studio that you walk around in. It's awesome. You work for this cool company, and then your coworker is this really great person she was just like sunshine. It's funny. For some reason, when I was there, I did this little cutout of the sun. I don't know where it came from, but I had this little cutout of the sun, and I always saved it because it reminded me of my coworker. She's very bright, cheerful, disposition, and it was really a pleasure to work with her. But we had another coworker that was okay, not bad as a coworker. But that coworker got promoted to manager of us, and we were kind of equals, and then she was promoted and to be in charge of us. And it didn't work out so well. It kind of a micromanager. I think the only management skills this person had was as a mother. And I'm not trying to take away anything from a mother. But your mother is your mother, and your coworker or, a manager, that's a different kind of thing. And I don't want to be managed like you're my mother, right? Anyway, and neither did my coworker, the one that I was with. And she was very unhappy. And she was so upset with this situation, she ended up leaving Disney. She quit. And you would look at this situation and you would think, Well, that was terrible. What a raw deal. You know, this other person was promoted, didn't work out, and now she's quitting. And you say, what bad luck. Kind of like the bad luck we're having with hedge funds. Delaying our squeeze. The nerve of them. It's awful. Well, here's how awful it was for my coworker. She ended up getting a new job. This time, I think at a brokerage in Santa Monica. And it was at this job that she met her future husband. And they had a beautiful set of twins. And then her husband recently, I guess he did some kind of thing where they took a company, they became public on the stock market somewhere. There's a big announcement, right? So they've done really well. So here's this former coworker that I had that had this bad break, you know, had a manager that she just couldn't work with. And she left. But look at the turns her life took because of that. Having that other person become the manager was probably the best thing that ever happened to her in her life. It indirectly led to her getting married, to having children, to being married to obviously a very successful husband. And they've been married a long time now. So, good for her. So now getting back to these hedge funds. Let's go back to late May, early June. I honestly thought I was going by what had happened with GameStop. You know, GameStop went to like 70, then it went to 140, and then the next day it was like 300 and 400, you know. And I literally thought when I got into it, it was around the high 20s, low 30s. And then it doubled, you know, to the got as high as 70, but, I remember it was being in the 60s. And basically doubled my Roth IRA in a couple of days. And I thought, this is it. And that's when I went out and recruited people. I said, you got to do this. You got to get on the rocket. You know, I don't know anything about this. All I know is if you don't have a seat on the rocket ship when it blasts off, you're not getting on the rocket. And I got a few people to invest in AMC with me. And then, of course, everything, fell apart. At least as far as, it got stalled in the 60s, fell back into the 50s. They really pushed down into the 30s and then, even the 20s. But here's what happened with that. The longer this went on and the cheaper the stock was, I was able to add to our individual investment accounts. Not the Roth IRA. That was done. Once I had transferred everything, once I decided to go all in on that, I just redistributed everything and went all in on the Roth because I figured it was 7 years away. Why not? We weren't going to feel that money in the meantime. So I was comfortable enough going in on that, and that was set. But we would not have seen any of that money for 7 years anyway. So the individual account that we had, when we scrambled to get enough shares, because we did not have a ton of cash at that time. In those first few days of investing, when everything doubled, right? But because of the delays, the pushing, the manipulation, driving the price down, we kept getting paychecks. It went on for weeks. I mean, we started this in late May. We had all of June, all of July, and some of August now, that we were able to add shares. And I won't say exactly how many shares we have, but it's 3 times the amount we would have had this thing popped, in that first week of June. So thanks to the hedge funds and their delaying tactics and their manipulation, if this thing pops, and I do think it will pop eventually, don't ask me when, don't ask me how much, but I think the numbers are there that this stock is massively shorted, and that's going to have to be accounted for. Whether there's a conspiracy that gets them out of it and we all get screwed, that could happen, but I honestly think we'll get paid. I wouldn't be in it if I didn't think that. But because of the delays, we were able to, it's going to be 3 times what it would have been had it squeezed in that first week of June. So for that, I say to the hedge funds, thank you. Just as my old Disney coworker should say thank you to that manager. Thanks for being so unpleasant. If you had been a cooler manager, I probably would have stayed, and my life would have been completely different. I don't think she would probably trade her life right now for anything, especially your children, right? So anyway, that just is when I say, does life happen for the best, or did, she make decisions? Life happened and she made decisions, and it turned out pretty well for her. So again, getting back to this idea of being an addict, which I'm trying to answer. And I think about, what if this was alcohol? Do I put this ahead of my family? Would I rather, stay home and get drunk, or go out and take my kids to the park? Well, I could sit at home and watch the ticker all day, but I don't. However, because of the miracle of cell phones, I can go out with my kids and I can take them to the park, but I'll watch the ticker. I remember when I started this, people saying, oh, well, don't watch the ticker, it'll drive you crazy. I watch the ticker. And in that regard, I think you could say, yeah, you're an addict. Because when this stock rips, it is like playing a slot machine and hitting a jackpot. And that feeling you get when that money starts coming to you after you've been playing a slot machine, it's amazing. It's a drug. I mean, your brain produces the chemicals that you crave and love, and that's why you stick there. You're like a little lab rat. You'll keep losing money. Boom, when you win it, bang, your brain releases those chemicals, and you love it. And I remember, gosh, when it ripped that first time into the 60s, we had to take our car, and forgive me if I've told this story on the podcast before, we had to take our car in, or we were either taking it in or picking it up. And on the way to the dealership, the stock ripped from the 40s to the 60s. And it was incredible. I was in one car, my wife was in another car, and we were calling each other. So it must have been dropping it off if we were on our way to drop it off. And, we're just like, it hit this. We were both watching the ticker as we were driving. And it was amazing. Those are the early days. And that's when I probably became hooked on it. Seeing a stock do this. This was not normal. It wasn't normal. In fact, I remember one night it was aftermarket, and I watched the stock jump aftermarket. And that's when I thought, uh-oh, this thing's getting ready to pop. It's getting ready to blow. And that's when I really went all in. That's when I had opened up, the other brokerage accounts to get that instant credit and get going and get some more skin in the game. And it is like playing a slot machine. And if I do gamble, I'm not a big gambler, but if I do gamble, that's what I do. I play slots. And I know they're the worst odds. Worst odds in the casino, slot machines. But it's easy. I don't have to interact with another human being. And it's just simple, So I sit there and I watch the ticker. And when it goes up, I feel great. And when it goes down, I feel bad. And it's funny. I think of Breaking Bad. It's funny, I do a lot of Twitter searches for AMC, and every once in a while, Walking Dead or Breaking Bad will come up in the searches. But I love the show Breaking Bad, and there's that scene at the end, and he always says he's doing it for his family. He's always doing it for his family, and he's talking to his wife probably for the last time, and he starts talking about it again, and she's like, "If you say you're doing it for the family, I'll kill you," right? Basically, and he says, "No, I was doing it for me. I was doing it because it made me feel alive, because I was good at it." And even when the stock goes down, I feel alive. It brings out emotion. I don't like it. I like it when it goes up, but you're engaged. It's engaging your mind. So even when it goes down, I still watch it. Sometimes I turn it off. It's really bad. But I'm at the point now where I know, now that we have these verified shares coming in for the voting, for the earnings call and the questions, I know this thing is oversold. The numbers just don't lie unless there's some crazy fluke. That these numbers just don't lie. It's statistical that, this is a tsunami that's coming, and the hedge funds can't stop it. It's a tsunami, and we're on the right side of that wave. So when it goes down, it doesn't bother me as much as it did the first time. But I still I'll go to the park and I'll watch it. I was with the kids today and, taking them out, and we were just walking, and as we were walking, I was watching it because it ripped. That was the thing. I started the last podcast, was it 29:20 when I started the podcast, and then it started to go, and then it went for the rest of the day, and it ended up, had like a 12% day. So, and that felt awesome. Even though we have a long way to go. My goodness, we have a long way to go. But that's the direction we need to go to get there. And it feels awesome. These green days, when it goes up, it feels great. And it makes up for a lot of the bad days. But that's part of the addiction. That great feeling I have right now, watching it in the green. And then, that sustains me when it does turn red and, goes downhill. So I think about that. What if I was in the park drinking with my kids? Well, I'd say maybe you're an alcoholic if you're doing something like that. But who knows? I also want to talk about like these moments, even when it goes up to 60. That's nowhere near where we want to sell our stock at. But I kind of think of it as like getting an acceptance letter to the college you want to go to. Like, think about all the amazing times you're going to have at college over 4 years, right? It's going to be amazing, right? But you got to get that acceptance letter first, right? So when it does jump, $3, or when it goes up, from 30 to 60 in a day, even though that's not when we're going to sell everything and have our life-changing money. It's like that acceptance letter. Like, this is it. This is the way. First, you get that letter. Then you let them know you accepted. You send your deposit. You get ready to move. You move into your dorm, and you just start your freshman year. And that's kind of the, how I feel about it. That I know that when we rip a little bit, it's not the end-all, be-all. But it's where we need to go. But it's that initial rush of getting that letter and the promise that it delivers. So when you see the stock bounce and make a comeback, even though the ticker's probably highly manipulated, it feels great. It feels like getting that acceptance letter in the mail, like you're on your way. Let's go. Let's go. And before you know it, you're going to be having amazing times at college. And hopefully that's the way this will be, that these numbers, once it starts going and the shorts start getting covered, it just rips. The hundreds, the thousands, the tens of thousands. Who knows? Maybe the hundreds of thousands. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But that's what people are saying. That's what people are predicting. And that's why a lot of people got into this AMC play. And that's why I got into the AMC play. So, am I addicted in that sense? Or am I just like, hey, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And it's very volatile. So you better pay attention to it, and you better get as familiar with this stock as you can, because at some point you're going to have to make a decision. When are you going to sell? Do you really trust this thing to go past $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000? I hear different things from different people. Some people say it's going to $500,000 a share, $1 million a share. Other people say, hey, $500, $5,000, that's it. That's as high as it's going to go. And that's why I keep an eye on the stock as well. It's just a huge investment for us, and I want to make sure I've done all I could at the end of the day, so when we do make the decision and we do smash that sell button, we're comfortable with those decisions. I do tend to get tunnel vision when I get involved in a project, which is kind of like an addiction, kind of like an obsession. But it's funny, I tried to explain it to my wife at times. When I get locked into something, like, I got to do it now. I got to do it right away. I got to do it now. I just get locked into it, and I got to do it now. And I'll give you an example. There are times when I get locked in. We have a house, and sometimes we paint rooms. And sometimes I'll get locked in, and I could work all night, paint a room, pull an all-nighter, get it done, just get it done. And then we're also trying to paint our living room. But we're having a hard time deciding on a color. So there were colors that I liked that my wife didn't like, and we're trying to find something that we both agree on. So I had started this process, and I was all in. I got everything together. I got everything ready to go. We had time getting ready to be put aside for it, but we couldn't decide on the color. We'd gotten sample colors, so we'd paint the squares, 4 squares, just to see what each color looked like and when it's dry and how, spend a few days with it. It's been that way for months now in our living room. And that's the difference. When I get locked in, I get the job done. And when I lose interest, it's going to sit around for months not doing it. It's kind of like a caveman. I think when you're on the hunt and you're trying to kill that, your whatever food you're hunting to feed your family and your group, you get locked in and you don't stop till you make the kill and you bring that food home. And that's how I am. And that's how I am with the AMC. It's like, look, this is it. This is life-changing money, and I'm going to do everything I can to see this through. And if that means that, I sacrifice a little time with the family or I'm a little obsessed, so be it. So be it. I'm not going to just turn off the ticker. I'm not going to pay attention to it. Well, I'll just set my alerts. If it goes to 50, I'll get a message and I'll check it out. Nope, I'm there. I'm watching the ticker. I'm with it. And I know that the hedge funds supposedly have psychologists, helping them out, designing ways to frustrate us. So I know that. So when it goes low, when it gets frustrating, I know that that's what they want us to feel. And that's fine. It also brings about a certain determination. And again, I know I talk a lot about military history in the Army. But when I first started on this thing, I was like the dumb new soldier, ready to go off and like, oh, look at, take my picture, I'm a soldier, yeah, all that. And once you've gone through a few things, you get a little more, grounded in reality. And you just want to get this job done. You just want to fight and get home. And that's obviously where I'm at now. Is like, I just want this thing to end and get back to my normal life. And we'll do whatever it takes to do that. We got to hold. When it dips down into the 20s, we hold. We don't panic sell. So the other thing I want to talk about was like, well, what are my limits? I actually set a number, even though my wife said don't buy anymore. I had a number in my head, and I said, all right, I want to try to get to this number. It was a nice round number for us. And I said, if I can get there, that'll be it. That'll be it. I won't have the drive to keep increasing it. Hopefully that's the limit. And I got to that limit. And thankfully, because the stock was in the low 30s, it was a lot cheaper getting there than it was before. But I got to that limit, and guess what? I stopped. I added maybe 1 or 2 shares here and there for small reasons. If there was leftover money in the account, and I could rounding up a share. If we had like a, half a share somewhere, we could add, a few bucks to round that share up. And so we added just 1 or 2 more shares, but after that number. But that's okay. That was it. And I don't have that burning desire to keep adding more. I'd love to, but it just wouldn't be responsible at that point. I could honestly say to my wife, listen, I had a certain number I wanted to get to. I got us there, and that's it. We're done. We're at our number. So unless this thing really gets delayed again and the price goes down back into the 20s, I think I'm done. I think the Roth has been set for a while, the shares we have in the Roth, and now our individual accounts. I think we're done there too. If we can keep adding more, maybe we will. But it's not this. Before it was this, I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it now. That's me. That's my personality. So I do get tunnel vision, but I think I'm out of that tunnel now. And we didn't go all in. We still have money in our checking. We can go a few months paying our mortgage. We've got a couple months of, at least, 3 months of our mortgage in our checking. God forbid we'd ever need that. We're both working. We both still bring money in. But we didn't go all in. And who knows, maybe if this thing does pop in the next couple of days, you'll say, we could have put at least 2,000 more into it. Oh my God, we could have put 2 more thousand in when it was down at, $29.30, $29.20. How many more shares could we have added? But we don't know that. We don't know how long this is going to take. So I did stop at the limit. So that's, when you say, are you an addict? I knew where to stop. A lot of times gambling addicts, they can't help themselves. They just go broke. They lose their money. And then they go get more money. They borrow more money and they lose that. That's an addict. Someone that likes to go to the casino, they go to the casino. Yeah, you lost some money, You get on in life. I've been there. I've been at the casino. I've been on a bad run where it's the victory is when you finally pull yourself away and you say, you're not making this up. Get out and get out now. And as hard as that is, you feel like you've won because you were able to walk away without going back into your account and going to the ATM. And it's tough. And other times you leave up. You hit a nice number and you say, that's it. I'm going to play just a couple more, but we're walking out winners. And you walk out winners and it feels awesome. So what's the difference? Is this an obsession? Is it compulsion? Is it smart or is it an addiction? I definitely think it's an obsession right now. I'm all in on this with my time and attention. Obviously, I'm doing a podcast on it. I enjoy doing podcasting anyway, and I just felt this was a good way to deal with some of the, my feelings as an investor, and hopefully, it helps out other people. And yes, I was compulsively trying to get to this number, but I got to it. Now, was it smart? Well, it's kind of like, the coach draws up a play, and the player goes out, and he shoots that last second shot, and when it goes in, he's the greatest coach ever. A genius. And when the shot misses, he's the worst coach. Fire that coach. It could be, centimeters, fractions of a second that determine the genius from the idiot that should be fired. So is it smart? Well, if this thing pops and we get life-changing money, even if we double our money, triple our money, then it was smart to do it. If we lose everything, then it was stupid. But I don't think we'll lose everything. I don't think it'll be that bad. So at the moment, I would say it's definitely an obsession, and I was compulsive to get to a certain number, and that's going to be a big test for me. Now that number's met, can I hold off? I'd love to keep adding on, and if it was financially responsible, I would. If this drags on for another month and we get some more money, sure, and the stock is reasonably priced, I probably will add on after a couple weeks. But right now, I'm done. This is the other thing I want to talk about. My dad's birthday was yesterday, and I talked to him. And it's funny, we don't talk often about the stock. Every once in a while, I'll give him updates on it because it's been down for a long time. And I told him, I was like, look, I'm sorry that it's down. I gave him updates on like the share count. And I said, hey, that's promising. It's really proving, this is a verified number that this stock is shorted. So just hang in there. Our payday will come. Even if it's, 1.5 billion shares, they're going to have to pay up, a lot more than they would normally have to do. So I, kept, and he's like, I wasn't going to, the money he invested, he didn't need. It was just sitting there. He doesn't need it. Who knows, after a year, if it's still monkeying around like this, he might take it out. But he's good for now. And that felt good that he's okay. And he doesn't, blame me for it or like, why did you? But I told him, I said, one of the things I was sorry for is like, I didn't know how corrupt the system was. Look, I get it. I know the 1% can do whatever they want. But I literally didn't realize like the same hedge fund that shorted this stock is the same people that can direct your order, control your order of the share, which could artificially keep the share level, the stock price down. And they also control the secret back room where they can do all these deals. Now I know they're all separate companies and they can't coordinate with each other. Right. Sure they don't. And that's what I felt bad about. I didn't know that before when I started. And I was aware like Robinhood took away the buy button and all that baloney. But I figured, well, once we're in. And we're not going to be buying anymore when this thing starts ripping. And we were aware of that. So I thought, well, just do the best you can when it starts to rip and do the best you can. I didn't realize how bad it was. But he was okay with that, and I felt good about that. So the other thing is, this has created such a bad taste in my mouth for the stock market that in the beginning, in the first days, I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a day trader. Yeah, this is fun. Doubling your money in a few days, making more money in a day than you would do at your normal job in a week or a month or months. And then, obviously reality hit. And I'm at the point now, I want this play to happen. The money that I make maybe I still have like my Disney 401k, so I'm invested in the market, and I'll probably keep those investments. And maybe if we make a lot of money, sure, I might buy a few stocks, but it's really just to let them sit. I want to go back to my old investing ways. You make your investment and you let it sit for several years. But I think the majority of it, I want to put it in safe investments, whether it's government bonds, gold, metals, or, don't put it all back in the market because it's left a pretty bad taste in my mouth. But I want my life back. I don't want to be watching the ticker anymore. And that's the other reason why I don't think I'm addicted to AMC. I don't want to go through this again. I want to go through it once. I want to make that life-changing money. And then I want to go back to my life, as I'm sure maybe a lot of you do as well. And then I'll look back on these days, kind of like the way some people look back on being in the Army. That it was kind of a stressful time. You had a lot of different adjustments to your life. I'm on the West Coast in the United States, so pre-market for us is 1 a.m. So sometimes if I've stayed up late, I might stay up a little later to see how pre-market goes. Or if I get to bed, early, and I wake up in the middle of the night, I go and I check on the market and I see how it's doing. And sometimes I would watch it till the market really opened in the morning. At 6:30 a.m. for us and 9:30 East Coast time. Other times I would watch it and just go right back to bed. But I kind of want it to be like, these are my old days in the Army. And that's what we had to do to get the job done. And the people that were invested in AMC with me, there will be like Army buddies. You might be in touch with people and you talk about the old days. And I know I'm not an old veteran like the people that were there in January, like the battle of, $8.01. That doesn't mean much to me. That was way before my time. I still don't. But I remember the rip to 72. I was there for that. And I was there when they drove it back down. And I was there for that. I was there for Chad. There for Chad. I was there for the Ape Fest in Vegas and all of that baloney. But then I was also there for Timothy B's question. Are they going to do a dividend? And God bless you, Timothy B, for giving us hope and something to reassure us that we made the right move. And hopefully this does work out. So I always say at this point in this series, hopefully the next episode will be the mother of all short squeezes. We'll be into it. We'll see how the next few days go. We have Friday, and then Monday is the earnings call. So we'll see. I think I like doing these podcasts more frequently now. So I'll probably do one a day, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. But we'll find out where we are on the next episode of the AMC Stock Story.